It is finished. 3 small words, spoken from the cross, and most of us have heard them 1,000 times. We picture a body going limp, a head dropping, a long, painful thing finally, mercifully over. It sounds like the sound a person makes when there is nothing left to give, and that picture is not entirely wrong. It really was the moment he breathed his last. But here is something almost nobody tells you. The last word Jesus spoke was not the sound of a man giving up. It was a word that merchants stamped across a bill that had been paid. In the streets outside that hill, traders and taxmen wrote it on receipts and on contracts to mean one thing: nothing more is owed. So maybe these are not the tired words of defeat we assume. Maybe they are the loudest declaration of victory ever spoken, and we have been hearing them in the wrong tone our entire lives. The secret is hidden in one Greek word, underneath those 3 English words. And once you see the tense buried inside it, everything shifts. The debt is not being paid. The debt has been paid, and it can never be owed again. In the next few minutes I will show you one word, one hidden tense, and one thing ancient traders wrote across a debt, and it will change how you hear this verse forever. If you have ever felt like you still owe something you can never repay, stay with me. Because John chapter 19, verse 30 was never a whisper of surrender. It was a receipt held up to heaven. So, come with me to the hill. So let us begin where John himself begins, with the word itself, because everything we are about to uncover is already packed inside it. Here is the first thing you need to see. In English, Jesus speaks 3 words. It is finished. 3 separate sounds, 3 separate beats, but that is not what came out of his mouth. In the language John actually wrote in, it is not 3 words at all. It is one. A single word. Tetelestai. Say it slowly. One word, carrying the entire weight of the cross. Now most of us, when we hear it is finished, hear it the way we would hear someone at the end of a long and exhausting day. The work is over. I am done. I have nothing left to give. We hear surrender. We hear a man who simply could not go on. And it is easy to hear it that way, because that is how we normally use the word finished. The meeting is finished. The meal is finished. The battery is finished. Something ran out, and so it stopped. But tetelestai does not come from a word that means to stop. It comes from a Greek word, telio, and telio does not mean to quit. It means to complete, to carry something all the way to its goal, to bring a thing to the exact end it was made for. Picture an arrow that finally lands in the center of the target. Picture a runner who does not collapse halfway, but crosses the finish line with his hands in the air. Telio is not the sound of something running out, it is the sound of something arriving, so already the picture begins to turn. It is finished does not mean I am finished. It means it has reached its goal. The mission is complete. But here is where it becomes remarkable, and this is the secret I promised you at the start. It is not only the word that matters, it is the tense hidden inside it. Greek has a tense that English barely has. We call it the perfect tense. Let me make it simple. In English, if I say the debt was paid, that tells you it happened once, back then, in the past, and it quietly leaves you wondering, well, is it still paid now? Am I sure? The perfect tense wipes the doubt away completely. The perfect tense says the action was fully completed in the past, and its result goes on standing, right now, without end. So tetelestai does not simply say it got finished once, a long time ago, on a faraway hill. It says, it stands finished. It was completed, and it remains completed, and it keeps on being completed, with no expiration date stamped anywhere on it. It is done, and it can never come undone. Stay with that for a moment, because this is the whole heart of it. When Jesus spoke his final word, he did not say, I am ending. He said this is accomplished, and it will stay accomplished forever. And that quietly changes how you carry your own life. Think about the things you keep redoing. You apologize, and a week later, you feel like you have to apologize for the same thing all over again. You try to be good enough, and the next morning the meter seems to reset to zero, and there you are, earning it back from the start. That is the world of the ordinary past tense. Nothing ever quite stays done. But the cross does not speak in that tense. The cross speaks in the perfect tense. It was finished, it is finished, and it can never be owed again. So hold on to that word, tetelestai, and hold on to that tense, because we are going to need both of them before this is over. If this really is one word that means the work is fully and permanently complete, then a very simple question follows right behind it. Complete of what? What exactly was finished? What was so fully paid that it never has to be paid again? To answer that, we have to step away from the hill for a moment. We have to walk down into the streets below it, into the noise of the marketplace, where ordinary people were writing this very same word, tetelestai, on a very ordinary slip of paper, because that is where its meaning stops being a mystery and starts becoming personal. So here is the second place we have to look, and it is not a temple, and it is not a courtroom, it is a marketplace. Because here is the strange and wonderful thing. When the people standing near that cross heard the word tetelestai, many of them did not first think of religion at all. They thought of money, they thought of receipts, they thought of debt, because this was a word they used almost every single day in the most ordinary corners of their lives. We tend to assume paid in full is just a nice poetic phrase somebody invented later to make the cross sound beautiful. It is not. We have documents from that world, tax records, loan agreements, bills of sale, and written across them in the merchant's own hand is this very word, tetelestai. It was what you wrote when a debt had been settled down to the last coin. It was the ancient stamp that said this account is closed. Nothing more is owed here. So, picture it. A man owes a sum he has been carrying for years. It has followed him around like a shadow. And then one day he makes the final payment. And the lender takes the document, and across the front of it he writes one word, tetelestai, paid in full. And from that moment on, that piece of paper is not a threat anymore. It is a proof. If anyone ever comes back and says, "You still owe me," the man can hold it up and say, "No, look at the word. It is finished." Do you feel what just happened? The word did not shrink. It grew. It is finished is not smaller than paid in full. Paid in full is simply the doorway that lets ordinary people like us walk into it. Jesus did not whisper a vague spiritual poem from the cross. He stamped a receipt across the debt of the world, and the ink has never faded. So let me make this personal, because I think you already know where this is going. You carry a bill too. Almost everyone does. Maybe you would never call it that, but you feel it. It is that quiet sense that you still owe something. You owe for the thing you did years ago that you have never quite forgiven yourself for. You owe some invisible standard that whispers you are only acceptable if you stay good enough, useful enough, impressive enough, and so you carry it everywhere, into your quiet mornings, into the middle of the night, a weight that presses on you even when nothing is wrong, that quiet feeling that you are somehow behind and can never fully catch up, and nobody ever writes the word across your account. That is the exhausting part. The sense of owing never lifts. It just rolls over to the next month, and the next, and you begin to believe it will follow you to the very end. Now hear the word again, but hear it aimed straight at that bill. Tetelestai. Not you are getting closer. Not keep paying, and maybe someday. The debt is not being paid. The debt has been paid, and it can never be owed again. Imagine the call you never thought you would get. The one that says the balance you have been terrified of, the number you could not even look at, is not high anymore. It is zero. Someone reached it before you ever could, and they marked it closed. That is what is hanging in the air when Jesus speaks. Not the sigh of a man who lost, the signature of a man who paid. But this is exactly where an honest question has to rise up in you. If the debt is truly paid, then why? Why does it take a death to pay it? Why not simply cancel it and move on? What kind of bill costs this much? To answer that, we cannot stay in the comfort of the marketplace. We have to turn and look, honestly, at the size of what we actually owed. So we come to the third thing, and this is the hardest one to sit with, because it is not about a word on a page anymore. It is about you. To understand why the receipt had to be signed in blood, you have to be honest about the size of the bill. And here is the belief almost all of us carry without ever saying it out loud. We believe, deep down, that we can handle it ourselves, that if we just try a little harder, love a little better, apologize a little more sincerely, we can slowly pay the thing down. We treat the debt like a credit card balance, big and frightening, yes, but manageable if we are disciplined about it. Give me enough time, enough good days, enough effort, and I will get there. But watch what actually happens when you try. You resolve to be more patient, and you make it until someone cuts in front of you in traffic. You promise you will stop the habit, and you last 4 days. You decide you will finally be the parent, the partner, the person you know you should be, and by the weekend you are apologizing for the very same thing again. Every honest person eventually notices the pattern. The harder you work to clear the account, the more clearly you see how much is really on it. That is the part the marketplace picture could not show you. Your debt is not a stack of separate mistakes you could pay off one at a time. It is deeper than your behavior. It reaches down into the person doing the behaving. It is not just the wrong things you have done. It is the fact that even your best days are mixed. Even your kindness has a motive folded inside it. Even your apologies quietly want something back. Let me give you a picture. Imagine a man whose boat is taking on water, far from shore. There is a hole in the bottom, below the waterline, and he cannot reach it. So he does the only thing he can. He grabs a bucket and he bails, and for a while it feels like progress. But the hole is still open. The sea is still coming in. He is not fixing the problem. He is only postponing the moment it wins. And the most exhausting part is not the water. It is the hope that if he just bails a little faster, he will finally get ahead of it. That is the life so many people are living. Bailing, faster and faster, certain that the next round of effort will be the one that finally gets the balance to zero. And it never does, because the problem was never the water in the boat. It was the hole they could not reach. This is why the debt could not simply be waved away, and it is why you could never finish it yourself. A debt this deep does not need a better payment plan. It needs someone else, someone who is not sinking. Someone standing outside the boat entirely, who can do the one thing you cannot, reach the hole. And I want you to feel the strange relief hidden inside that. Because if the debt were small, then it would be up to you, and you would spend your whole life afraid you had not paid enough. But if the debt is so large that only God himself could settle it, then the pressure quietly lifts off your shoulders. You were never going to bail your way out. You were never supposed to. The word was never, "You are almost there." The word was, "It is finished," and it was spoken by someone standing where you could not stand. So the real question is no longer, "Can I pay this?" You cannot, and now you know it. The real question is much more uncomfortable. If someone has already paid a debt this size on your behalf, why is it still so hard to simply stop bailing and let them? Why do we cling to the bucket? That strange refusal to rest is the very thing we have to look at next. So before we stand at the cross itself and hear the word one last time, we have to clear away 2 misreadings, 2 quiet mistakes that steal the power right out of Tetelestai, and they pull in opposite directions. Here is the first one, and it is the most common. People hear it is finished and they think it means Jesus was finished, that he had reached the end of his strength, that the pain finally broke him, and this was the last gasp of a man who lost. Look closely at the words. They say, "A man is dying." Of course it is a surrender. But remember what we found. This is not a word of collapse. It is a word of completion. And the tense underneath it is not the tense of something breaking down. It is the tense of something achieved and standing forever. John even tells us Jesus spoke it and then bowed his head. Not his head fell, he bowed it. Like a workman laying down his tools when the job is done well, not a victim dropping under a weight he could not carry. The point of the cross was never that Jesus was defeated. It was that the mission was accomplished. He was not finished. The work was finished. And there is a world of difference between those two sentences. Now here is the second misreading, and it hides on the opposite side. Some people hear the debt is paid, nothing more is owed, and they quietly conclude, "Then nothing I do matters now. If it is all covered, I can live however I want." The receipt becomes an excuse. Grace becomes a shrug. But think about how strange that actually is. Imagine someone reaches into an account and pays off a debt that would have crushed you for the rest of your life, a debt so large it cost them everything they had. Now imagine your response is, "Wonderful, then I will be as careless as I like." Nobody who truly understands what was paid responds that way. A gift that size does not produce a shrug, it produces gratitude. It does not make you love less, it breaks your heart open and makes you love more. The person who really hears Tetelestai does not walk away thinking, "Now I can do nothing." They walk away thinking, "I have been handed a life I could never afford, and I want to live like it was worth it." So, hold both corrections together, because the truth stands right between them. It is finished does not mean Jesus was finished, and it does not mean you are now free to drift. It means the work was finished, so everything about how you live changes. Not out of fear that the debt might come back. It cannot. Remember the tense, it cannot come back, but out of love for the one who closed it. And this is where the receipt shows its real weight. A paid bill that you keep trying to pay again is not honored, it is insulted. Picture handing the lender your money after he has already written "paid in full" across the page. He would push it back and say, "Why are you doing this? Do you not see the word? Do you not trust what I wrote?" Every time we go back to earning what has already been given, we are quietly doing the same thing. We are questioning the word. We are treating a finished debt as if the ink might still wash off. So the invitation is not "try harder," and it is not "do nothing." The invitation is trust the word enough to stop paying, and then to live out of relief instead of fear. That is the narrow and beautiful place the cross puts us in. Not striving, not drifting, resting and being changed by the rest. But a word this large, a claim this bold, cannot just be explained. It has to be witnessed. So let us go back, one final time, to that hill outside the city. Let us stand close enough to hear it. Because the moment Jesus actually speaks to Tetelestai, something tears, something opens, and the whole meaning of the word comes rushing out into the open. So come back with me to that hill one last time, but slow down. Do not rush past it the way we usually do. Stand there in the dust and watch. It is the middle of the afternoon, but the sky has gone dark. It has been dark for hours. The crowd that came to shout has mostly gone quiet, because there is something in the air now that mocking cannot survive. There are 3 crosses on the ridge, and on the center one hangs a man who has already been beaten past recognition. He has been there for hours. Every breath costs him. To speak, he has to push himself up on nails, drag in the air, and let the words out before his body drops again. And through all of it, notice what he does not say. He does not curse the soldiers below him. He does not beg to be taken down. He is not fighting the cross. He is finishing something on it. Everything that has been promised for centuries, every shadow, every sacrifice, every ancient word about a lamb, every debt written against every human being, all of it is being drawn to a single point, in a single body, on a single afternoon. Then he lifts himself one more time. He asks for something to drink, wets his lips, and gathers what is left of his voice. And this is the moment. This is the word we have been circling this whole time. Not whispered in defeat, not moaned in despair. The Gospels tell us, he cried out with a loud voice, clear, like a verdict. Tetelestai, it is finished. And then, only then, he bows his head and gives up his spirit. In that order, the work first, the rest after. He does not die, and then the mission ends. He completes the mission, announces it, and only then lets go. No one takes his life. He lays it down, on purpose, the instant the debt reads 0. But here is the part I do not want you to miss, because it happens at the very same moment, far away, in a place he could not even see. Inside the temple, in the heart of the city, there was a curtain, a massive, heavy curtain, tall as a wall, that had hung for generations between people and the holy presence of God. It was a wall of cloth that said, "This far and no farther. You may not come in, the debt is not settled, stay out." And in that same moment, as he gave up his spirit, that curtain rips, not from the bottom, where a man might tear it, from the top, from the height no human hand could reach. It splits from top to bottom, all the way down, as if two invisible hands took it and tore it open like paper. The message could not be clearer. The barrier is gone. The way in is open. Not because we climbed up to God, because God tore the wall down from his side. Do you see what the word did? "It is finished" was not the closing of a door, it was the opening of one. For every person who had ever stood outside, sure they were too unclean, too far behind, too deep in debt to ever come near, the answer came ripping down through the temple. Come in. The thing that kept you out has been dealt with. It is finished. And because of the tense, that torn curtain never sews itself back up. This is the release your soul has been aching for without knowing its name. The debt is not being paid, so that you have to keep the account open and nervous. The debt has been paid. It stands paid, and it can never, ever be owed again. So let the word land now, not as a fact you file away, but as a door you are invited to walk through. The striving can stop. The bailing can stop. The endless trying to be enough can finally stop, not because you gave up, but because someone stronger finished it for you and tore the wall open with his own hands. The man on the center cross was not ending, he was opening. And the last word he spoke over your fear, over your failure, over the debt you were certain would follow you to your grave, was not "you still owe." It was not "try again." It was one word, cried out loud enough to split heaven and earth, and it still stands over your life right now. It is finished. So now, let us bring this all the way home. So here we are, back where we started. 3 small words we thought we understood. It is finished. But you cannot hear them the same way anymore. You came in picturing a tired man giving up. Now you know the truth. It was not, "I am finished." It was, "The work is finished." It was not a poem. It was a receipt stamped across a debt in the marketplace of the world. It was not a bill you could ever pay by bailing harder. It was a hole only God could reach. It was not permission to drift, and it was not pressure to strive. It was one word, cried out from a cross, that tore the curtain open from the top and never let it close again. So let me ask you the question this whole journey has been building toward. Not have you paid enough. You never could, and now you do not have to. The real question is simpler and far more tender. Will you live like someone who still owes, or like someone whose account has already been marked paid? Read the verse again with new ears. John chapter 19, verse 30. He said, "It is finished." and he bowed his head, and he gave up his spirit. Hear it now, over the thing you have been carrying, over the guilt you keep repaying, over the standard you can never reach, over the fear that you are too far behind. It is finished. It stands, finished, and it can never be owed again. That is where I want to leave you, not at the cross as an ending, but at the torn curtain as a door, standing wide open, with your name on the other side of it. If this word meant something in you today, I would love to keep opening scripture with you, so consider subscribing to walk through the next one together. And if you feel like it, leave one word in the comments. The debt you are ready to hand over. You might even share it with someone still carrying theirs. And now may the God who tore the curtain open give you rest. May you stop trying to pay what has already been paid. And may the last word of Jesus become the first word over your life, today and for all your days. It is finished. Go in peace and go free.